Hello everyone, a very logical day to all of you. So here we are with the first editorial of the Indian Express, June 9, 2023. Pressing pause. If you remember, we have used this word just around 1 month or 1.5 months back, where we were discussing this pause with the RBI, discussing in the sense related to RBI, right? Or pressing means something that is quite forceful, something that is required, it needs to be done, it is urgent, needs to be done, right? So it is a pause that is necessary to be taken, pressing pause. So the June meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee was held against the backdrop of an improving macroeconomic environment. Inflation has fallen below expectations and growth has fared better than most optimistic projections. So that means here we are with the positives. Right. It was a meeting about the monetary policy. Now, in this environment, as was expected, the MPC has voted unanimously to keep interest rates unchanged as it assesses the impact of past monetary policy action. As I said, that we had read about this earlier, around 2 months back or 1.5 months back. So they kept their interest rates unchanged. And this was the past monetary policy action. Therefore, these people have voted unanimously. That means they are of the same opinion, everyone, that so this should be continued. So the benchmark repo rate stands at 6.5%. The tone of the policy was balanced. Monetary policy, we are talking about the tone, and we have done this in our RCs also. So it was a balanced tone, but not in a proper equilibrium, you can say, but not lopsided. So the committee emphasized the need to remain vigilant on the growth inflation outlook, considering the uncertainty stemming from the deceleration in global economic activity. Deceleration is the opposite of acceleration, right? That means again we are talking about the declining global economic activity. Tight financial conditions, elevated inflation, elevated is increased, and continuing geopolitical tensions. All these things are there in the world, right? So, and there is an uncertainty about this, right? Because of all these things, there's an uncertainty. So, what does this particular part of the paragraph or passage give us? That we need to keep the interest rates unchanged, and this has been voted by everyone. Let's see here. So, everyone has voted this so unanimously to keep the interest change rates unchanged. One thing. So we'll join these two dots, right? And then comes the word needs to. So need to remain vigilant. Ye ho gaya. Why? Because of uncertainty that is cropping up from the deceleration in the global activity, economic activities, right? Combining these four dots together, you can come up with the main point of this particular paragraph. Now, in recent months, inflation has surprised on the downside. Retail inflation, as measured by the Consumer Price Index, fell to 4.5% in April, down from 5.66% March, in part due to the base effect. Core inflation, which has tended to be sticky, has also softened. Factoring in these readings, well, something has softened, right? So, factoring in these readings, the RBI has now lowered its inflation projections for the first quarter to 4.6%, down from 5.1% earlier. That means what was the projected one? It was 5.1. Now it has come down to 4.6, estimated in sub. However, inflation is expected to edge upwards thereafter to 5.4% in the second quarter, 5.4% in the third, and 5.2% in the fourth quarter as the base effect fades. Now understand, if it is the projection is reduced from 5.1 to 4.6, but after that it is 5.2, then 5.4, and then again 5.2. So if this data is given, now understand what can we infer from all this. तो यहां से हम infer कर सकते हैं, या यहां से हमारे पास एक क्वेश्चन बन सकता है, what is implied here. So, for the full year, the central bank now expects inflation at 5.5%, only marginally lower than its earlier forecast of 5.2%. While these projections point towards a real interest rate of 1.3%, they also imply, now see, this is what we can understand from the data. They also imply that inflation is likely to remain above the 4% target for the foreseeable future. तो 4% से ऊपर ही रहेगा इन्फ्लेशन. Here you can see it is 4.6, 5.2, 5.5, 5.4, and 5.2 again. So what can be understood from it, or what is implied here, that this inflation will remain at least 4% or above 4%. There remains considerable uncertainty over how the monsoon will play out. It's temporal, that is time related, and spatial distribution means space related. Could have a bearing on output and prices. किस एरिया में, किस रीजन में, किस टेरिटरी में कितना मॉनसून हो रहा है, कितने टाइम के लिए मॉनसून हो रहा है, all this will be the base of output and prices. All this is going to have an effect on the what will be the output and what will be the prices of these things, right? In the run up to this meeting, there was some expectation of the MPC changing its stance. Some expectation that it is going to change is its opinion, but its stance, that is opinion. However, the committee has voted 5.1 to keep its stance unchanged. Right? As I was referring to the previous articles that we had read related to this pause only. ठीक है, किसी ने फॉलो किया है तो उसको याद होगा कि हम आरबीआई की पॉज की बात कर रहे थे, एंड दिस इज व्हाट ही सेड, दैट दिस पॉज, दिस स्टैंड शुड रिमेन unchanged. That means no change in the rates. It remaining focused on the withdrawal of accommodation. It is possible that once there is greater clarity on the trajectory of inflation in the coming months over the impact of El Nino, the policy stance will be suitably altered. That means once you know what is going on, in which direction inflation is going to move, and then they can come up with some suitable alteration in the plan. Right? Now, here you have understood that this data reflects what? That inflation has lowered, right? So the projection has also been lowered there. In the near future also it will be above 4%. Because of this uncertainty, and about the uncertainty of the monsoon also, all this uncertainty will be having an effect on the output and the prices. But still, the RBI has kept its stance unchanged. Now you can see these 5 dots here, right? Then, on growth too, there is reason for optimism. In the last quarter of 2023, 22-23, the Indian economy grew at 6.1%. Now, this paragraph is again giving you the reasoning or the data of why there is optimism. तो point क्या थी? उसे first paragraph में ही दे दिया था point, that was of optimism. Now it is giving you additional reason about it. So in the last quarter, the Indian economy grew at 6.1%, surpassing most expectations. This has prompted many analysts to raise their forecast for growth. So they are raising their forecast as they reduced the estimate of the inflation. Now they are raising the forecast of growth also. So, however, again, this is the third or the fourth time that the author is using the word however. So understand his way of writing, his style of writing. He's coming up with a point then he is giving the reasoning, and then he is coming up with a counter argument. तो उसने however कर दिया. Again he gave a point, again he gave a reason and the data, and then he comes up with the use of the word however. So this is how this author is actually working. ठीक है, point reason however, point reason counter argument, मतलब argument, reasoning for it, the data for it, and then the counter argument. If you can catch such structures when you are reading and filtering out when you are reading only, right? So this will actually help you in answering those questions where they ask you, okay, what is going to follow next, or what is the organization of this passage. तो वो समझ में आएगा फिर. So, however, despite that, most of these estimates remain below the central bank's assessment, which still pegs growth at 6.5%. Pegs is to fix. In fact, the RBI now expects the economy to grow at 7.25% in the first half of the year, slowing down thereafter to 5.85% over the second half. How this growth inflation dynamic evolves with respect to the central bank. Now he comes up with this term, growth inflation dynamic. Expectation will determine the course. This is again for the second time he says that let us see how things work out, and then we are going to take something for, we can change or alter our course or path, right? So then this expectation will determine the course of monetary policy. So again, you have reason for expectation, right? They have raised the forecast, right? The growth is at 6.5%. ये तो data हो गया. But growth inflation dynamics होंगे, and then they will determine the course of the monetary policy. So let us see how this growth is taking shape, and then we are going to change our policy. For now, it will be a pause, right? So if this much is understood, we'll come to the, see, here it was optimism. Then it expects the economy to grow here, as I had said. And then this growth inflation is going to be a decisive factor, and then the monetary policy will be changing accordingly, right? So coming to the main idea, RBI maintains the status quo related to the first paragraph, and that was the pause on rates. So future course will be determined by, determine to karna hai, but future trajectory or the course will be determined by how growth inflation dynamic evolves. That was given to you in the third paragraph, right? How it evolves. So they was talking about the dynamic, the changes in inflation or growth oriented or growth inflation changes. So both the points there, first passage, first paragraph and the third one. So in the name of vocabulary, we don't have many words, yes, but a few. So status quo, you all can understand. I'm repeating this to be as it is. उस दिन आया था ना, just a few days back आया था. To be as it is. Right. Unanimously means of the same opinion. One, you have this balance is to be in equilibrium. Stemming का different uses होगा. यहाँ पे it was coming from, right? कभी इसका stop हो सकता है, कभी start हो सकता है इसका meaning. Stem is to cut also. Deceleration, opposite of acceleration. So the pace is slowed, वो deceleration हो जाएगा. Repo rate. Now, these are the words that you need to read. Repo rate, consumer price index, if you remember, it is CPI. Base effect, core inflation. तो जो core industries होती हैं, if you remember, maybe those who are following will remember, or you can read the articles of say February or March. वहां पे आया था ये core, जब monetary policy के लिए जब हमने articles पढ़े, so you will get these core industries, And if you are doing something in your GK also, then you'll get that there are 8 core industries. So you need to read about them. So that is the core inflation also. Temporal is related to time and spatial is related to place, three-dimensional. Trajectory is the course or the path. Answer pass is to go beyond. Right. Now, from these words, we get 3 root words. One, animus, right? So, anime is related to something that is has spirit, that is alive, right? Or that has soul. Anything that is alive will be animus. Second word that we get here is here, ject. So ject, I'll write this side. Ject means to throw, right? ऐसे समझो. So ject is like project, projection, projector. It throws the image, right? Then trajectory becomes the path. Subject means your sub means lower, at a lower level. So subject means the person who you are controlling or the person who is controlled by you. वो आपका subject हो जाएगा. The king and the subject, this is what I usually use in the class also. Right? So subject हो जाएगा. So you have this word ject. Project is the easiest word. Second, you can use the word as reject, or you have the word deject. So reject, rejection, deject, dejection. कुछ भी कर सकते हो where it means to be thrown somewhere. जैसे jet होता है वैसे jet से jettison आ जाता है. Then surpass. Jet मतलब thrown ऐसा नहीं कि literally आप उसको फेंक दो. Moving in that direction. वो होता है. Surpass में you have this word sir. SUR. और सर को सर से रिलेट कर दो. सर के ऊपर से पास हो गया मतलब सरपास. टू गो बियॉन्ड मतलब जो लेवल था उससे आगे निकल गया सरपास. वैसे ही आपके पास एक आ जाएगा वर्ड सरियल, राइट? सरियल, सरियलिज्म. रीड अबाउट इट. RREAL. Another word that you get here is surmount. ठीक है? Surmount, unsurmountable or surmountable. You'll get a few words here, right, to relate to this root, that is SUR, sur. Right, so that's all for today. And I hope you note down these words, and there are quite many who are not noting them down. So kindly do that, because understand that you don't need to cram the words, no, never. You just need to see the words, you need to use the words in the manner that you're just turning the pages and you can glance at those words. And then you have to read a lot so that you will come across these words somewhere or the other. Okay? So enriching our vocabulary will be a very gradual process. Thank you, and that's all for today, and see you tomorrow. Have a very logical day ahead.